Welcome to SomeGuy's Garage. This is the DeWalt DCS578 X1 kit. So it comes with the battery charger bag as well as the saw. This is a 7 1/4 inch circular saw that is cordless and runs on the 60-volt platform. Today we're going to take a look at the saw, we'll get it unboxed, assembled, and then take a look at its features and how it works. Alright, so we have a bag on top, the typical DeWalt tool bags. You can take a look at that here. There's a instruction manual. And then down inside here, I'm going to tilt the box up so you can see, but down inside here we have the charger. This is the DCB1106. I believe this is a 6 amp charger. Yeah, it says that on the front here. So 6 amp charger. And in the front pouches here, this feels like just empty cardboard. Probably a space if you got the X2 kit. And then on the other side here, that feels like the battery. It's a fair bit heavier. So let's open that up. I'll just push this back out of the way. Just figure out how to get inside. So there's the DeWalt 9 amp hour Flexvolt battery. That's the typical guard on it. Came with only one bar, so it's interesting. We'll have to charge it up first, but looks alright. Just as a size comparison, I have a couple of the other batteries here. So this is the 6 amp hour and this is the 9 amp hour. So a bit taller, a bit wider, a bit heavier. And then compared to the smaller 5 amp hour, quite a bit bigger. But as expected, you know, almost double the capacity. So you'd think almost twice the size. Alright, so we'll set that aside. Next, let's get the saw out of here. So it seems to be packaged in cardboard. Just unwrap that this way and this way. And pull this out. So there is the saw. And I just noticed there's also down here in the bottom of the box, if you can see that, there's the saw blade for it. I'll just get this stuff out of the way and we'll have a look here. Okay, so this is everything in the kit. You have the 60 volt 7 1/4 inch saw, the 9 amp hour battery with charger, the bag, instruction manual, and it comes with a DeWalt 7 1/4 inch 24 tooth framing blade. Looks like a fairly decent blade, has the relief cuts in it and stuff, so we'll get that installed on the saw here in a minute. Okay, so installing the blade, it looks to be a 1/2 inch nut, so 1/2 inch nut on the arbor. We'll pull that out. There's a small nut there that goes with it. And we'll put the blade in. So this side facing out, the blade cuts up. You can see the arrow markings here showing the blade rotation. So making sure the teeth are in the right direction. Put the nut back on and then tighten this down. Okay, and just to tighten it down, they do have a blade stop here, and it's kind of conveniently positioned that you can hold the blade stop, kind of like what a grinder has, a blade stop, and the guard at the same time, and then get the wrench in here to tighten it down. So we're good and tight there now. But that's really kind of a convenient feature that a lot of saws don't have, is the blade stop, so that you can actually tighten the blade without having to use like a piece of wood blocking it or something like that. So that's a nice feature. Hey, just one other thing I didn't catch while I was actually filming here, but there's a wrench right in the back here. So you don't even need to use an external wrench. It has wrench storage of its own right up there in the back side of the saw. Alright, and there we go with the blade installed. So let's take a walk through some of the features. It does have your typical blade guard here. As usual, it would bounce out of the way on its own, but you can lift it out of your way with your thumb. On the front is the angle adjustment. So you have a lever here that unlocks and lets you, let me see if I can get the plate to tilt here, lets you tilt the plate through to 57 degrees it looks like, so past 45, and also seems to have some positive stops at your typical angles, which is kind of nice as well, and that locks back up here. In addition, I just did take a quick look at the manual, there's a set screw here that you can use to adjust the plate and where 0 degrees is. So you're not at the mercy of just this angle adjustment to get your 0 perfect. You can use the adjustment screw here to zero it in even better. And then around the back here, There is the depth adjustment, so another locking lever there, and you can do your depth adjustment here. So as typical, and then locks back up. And then also there is a hanging hook. So looks to be sized about the size of a 2x4, so you could hang it up on a rafter or something like that to hold it in place so you don't lose it. That's kind of nice as well. Finally, typical trigger. So there's a spring-loaded lock here, so it's not one where you just click on and off like some of the DeWalt's other tools. It's you have to hold that and then pull the trigger. The trigger will not pull unless that is depressed. Otherwise, ergonomically, it is pretty comfortable. So there's a nice front hold here, right hand hold here. It would obviously not work very well if you were left-handed. In that case, you might want a different kind of saw, but for a right-handed person such as myself, this works pretty well, comfortable enough. And without a battery installed, not any heavier than a typical corded saw. So just for comparison, this is the corded version of the DWE575SB. So you can see they're very similar in size, both on the front, and if I turn this over here just so you can see the other side, they are quite similar in overall dimensions. Really the only differences that are really noticeable is this one does have the hanging hook, which this does not. The lock for the depth adjustment on this one is on the outside, this one's inside right beside the blade. And the motor housing is a little smaller. But otherwise, in terms of physical dimensions, they are very similar. So this should be almost a direct replacement for your typical corded circular saw. So since the other battery here is in charge, I've got one of my 6 amp hour ones, so we can just try it out right away here. So let's get that installed. It's locked on there now, and let's give it a run here. So blade stop works nice and fast. As expected, the brake is nice to have. You can set it down quickly without having to wait for it to spin down. And overall, not too noisy.
I did some measurements with a sound pressure meter. The cordless saw measured around 99 decibels using a slow A-weighted response, whereas the corded saw measured around 103 decibels using the same response.
Alright, so let's try the saw out. I'm down in the basement now and just have a 2x4 clamped to my little work stand here. And just going to take a few crosscuts and see how it does. Alright, so as you can see, it did quite well, as to be expected. Cut through very smoothly, very cleanly. Just grab a couple of the blocks here for you to see, but, nice smooth cut. The usual little bit of frays at the end when it breaks out, but in general, very nice clean cuts, very smooth, no vibration, and nice and fast. So definitely a replacement for a full corded saw. It is decently well balanced, although it is heavier, just given the battery, but not so much that it's awkward to use. Anyway, let's head back up to the garage and wrap this up. Alright, so that's my first look at the DCS578 X1 kit, which includes the 60 volt 7¼ inch saw, the 9 amp hour Flexvolt 60 volt battery, charger, and bag. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. If you aren't already subscribed, please consider it. And as always, thanks for watching.